This is episode 2 of a 9-part series on the Arbatel. In this episode, we are going to be talking about the Arbatel's First Septenary. What does that mean? Keep listening and find out.
Speak the charm of make. There
will come a time on the planet Earth when science and technology will be long forgotten. When wizards will rule the world.
This is the Arnemancy Podcast. Join your host, Reverend Erik, and his diverse array of amazing guests in an exploration of tarot, magic, the occult, and the history of Western esotericism. The Arnemancy Podcast exists thanks to the support of generous listeners like you. Please consider supporting this podcast for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/Arnemancy.
Whoever wants to know secrets needs to know how to keep secrets. Welcome to the Arnemancy Arbatel Project, a podcast series about one of history's most popular yet most mysterious grimoires. This is the second episode of a 9-part series. If you would like to listen to the other episodes in the series, go to arnemancy.com/Arbatel. This series is dedicated to Ophiel, the Olympic spirit of Mercury, who teaches all arts and grants one the skill to instantly turn Mercury into the philosopher's stone. My guest co-host in these episodes is Evan Gowan, and I am Reverend Erik, the host of the Arnemancy Podcast and the human behind the Arnemancy website. Learn more at arnemancy.com. So, the Arbatel is a 16th century Swiss grimoire, or book of magic. If you're interested in more of the history and historical context of this, check out the first episode in this series. Now, unlike other grimoires of the time, the Arbatel is light on ritual and focused on both beneficial magic and good spirits. In this episode, we're going to be exploring the First Septenary of the Arbatel. Now, in this context, a septenary is a collection of 7 aphorisms. The Arbatel contains 7 septenaries, which makes for a total of 49 aphorisms. This book loves the number 7. Some of these aphorisms are really brief, and others span pages. Now, the First Septenary sets the stage for the book. It emphasizes the importance of secrecy and keeping secrets. This is one of those skills that every magician should already be familiar with. The commands to know, to dare, to will, to keep silent. Heck, we're looking at an occult text, and the word occult means to hide and conceal. As we will see as we go through the Arbatel, the emphasis on secrecy both protects the practitioner from persecution and shields the relationship that the magician builds with the Olympic spirits. Let's talk about the idea of the isagoge. The entirety of the Arbatel is presented as just the first of 9 books. However, the other 8 have never been discovered and probably don't exist. So because of this, the Arbatel is titled isagoge, or introduction. This term is frequently applied to preliminary texts, and indeed much of the work of the Arbatel is presented as preliminary work. Achieving a certain level of righteousness, contacting each of the Olympic spirits, and learning the initial duties of a magician are really just the beginning of a much longer journey. The first English translation of the Arbatel was published along with other translated texts, and altogether presented as the 4th book of occult philosophy. Interestingly, another text in this collection was also titled Isagoge and is typically known by that name and is a dialogue between the twins Castor and Pollux on the nature of spirits. Many of the aphorisms in the First Septenary have a lot to do with faith and how to invoke deity. For instance, we are told to always call upon the divine before all of our magical works. In particular, the Arbatel focuses on a Christian approach to this. There is a lot of Jesus talk in parts of this book. As a pagan, I tend to ignore this. I have my own relationship with the divine, and it has served me well. Magic without Jesus has been just fine for me. Part of faith involves the practice of theological virtues, such as learning to experience divine love, practice humility, and avoid temptation. We are also told to look to the divine to test our wisdom and to search out meaning in Scripture. Now, the question of Scripture is an interesting one. If you are a Christian, this means the Bible, of course. But if you are not Christian, where do you look? For me, the religious nature of the Arbatel has brought me closer to the Scripture of my own faith, the Corpus Hermeticum and other Hermetica. I read and reread these works, and I gain new insights from them every time I dive in. For you, this could be another work that gives you spiritual and religious meaning. Or perhaps your religion revolves around interpreting the book of nature itself. I don't see why you can't get what you need with a bit of tree hugging and skinny dipping. Now please enjoy as Evan and I explore the aphorisms of the First Septenary.
So the First Septenary starts off talking about secrets and the importance of secrecy. And it has that line. In fact, it starts out, whoever wants to know secrets needs to know how to keep secrets. So right. It kind of reminds me of like the Entered Apprentice degree a little bit.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parallels with like Masonry when reading through this a second time. Or I guess it's my third time reading through all the way. And there's a lot of parallels I've noticed. It's
kind of crazy.
Yeah.
The first aphorism is the one about secrets. And I think it's kind of got some interesting stuff. You know, it says, keep secrets. It has that great line, do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs, you know, which is I think it's a Bible quote. To throw your pearls before swine sort of thing.
Yeah. I read that and I'm like, oh, is that exactly like what we're doing, giving up secrets by doing talking about it on a podcast?
Well, that's an interesting thing to talk about, right? Because everything in the Arbatel is obviously not one of the secrets because it's published.
Right.
But in some of the later septenaries, it does talk about how secrets are going to be revealed to you. And then there's all like, you know, the spirit work stuff is all about the revelation of secrets. And it tells you the sorts of things that you're not supposed to reveal.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of what the interpretation that I took from it was the secrets that you gain through the workings, not the text on the page necessarily.
Yeah, same here. And also, our listeners aren't swine, or if they are, they're the loveliest of swine. But the thing is, it kind of talks about, like, it says that if you can be good at keeping secrets, you will have your mind's eye opened. You will become better at understanding secrets. Like, the more you keep secrets, or the more practice you have at keeping secrets, the better you will get at understanding them, and the more will be divinely revealed to you.
Right.
And that's kind of interesting also. I guess it sort of is like the first commandment, really, in this. It's like you should keep secrets.
And like in doing so, you prove your trustworthiness. Like,
yes,
I suppose.
But it almost sounds like there's almost like an innate transformation that happens when you keep secrets, right? Like It says, observe this law and your mind's eye will be opened to you for understanding secrets, and you will hear divinely revealed whatever your mind desires. Like that sort of indicates that it's almost like a spiritual practice.
Right. Right. And it falls in line. There's a lot of redundancy in these aphorisms, and it's kind of interesting how it says that in this one, and then we'll get to it, you know, as we work through these aphorisms, but later on it kind of reiterates it in a different way. And so you can read these aphorisms in order, but you'll almost like find that some of them build off of other ones.
Yeah, like
which is interesting.
Yeah. And I guess we should pay attention to that as we go along. When we get to the other secret aphorisms, we should call back to this one and say,
right.
And then this too, aphorism 2 is also kind of Masonic. In all things, call upon the name of the Lord.
Right.
Right. So, like in Freemasonry, there's this teaching, you know, do not enter into any good or important undertaking without first invoking the name of deity. Right. So here, it's almost like it's sort of saying the same thing. It's saying, like, don't do anything unless you invoke God first.
Yep.
But I think it's fairly straightforward. What do you have about the second aphorism? Do you have anything interesting?
Not really. I mean, I kind of took it as to invoke God is really just it kind of falls in line with just living or making decisions based off of I guess universal law, like when it comes to not to make it not specific to Christianity, but just any whatever that universal law of not doing harm to others and stuff like that. That's kind of what how I took it, especially when it comes into making decisions or doing dealings with other individuals, you know, doing so in a way that I don't know if it literally means like doing it in the name of God or a higher power, but more so doing it in line with whatever universal structure that you or philosophy that you kind of you kind of follow or use to guide decisions you make in your life.
It also has the interesting line about use the spirits given to you and assigned as ministers without rashness or presumption, but with due respect towards the Lord of the spirits. I guess that's sort of almost a second commandment in there, a second instruction, which is like, when you're given spirits, use them for what their purpose is and don't try to do something else with them.
Right.
Almost.
And guy, it's hard. It's almost hard to talk about certain thand with an aphorism, because then like 3 aphorisms later, it's like it's almost like it would be talking about that aphorism and talking about this one, you know. But yeah, I'll have to come back to that, because there's something in a few aphorisms. I feel like there's something that kind of relates to exactly what this is saying too. And that's where it's at first it almost feels like super redundant. Like, okay, I get it. Like, honor God, you know, live your life according to His will, like all these things.
Keep secrets, blah, 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 blah.
But then it's super interesting how it kind of builds there, because we'll get to it. There's another one, and I don't even remember which one, but when we get to it, I'll have to remember aphorism too.
The Arbatel advises us to live for the Muses and avoid the friendship of the multitude. Luckily, though we are quite fond of every one of our listeners, the audience of this podcast is small enough that hopefully it does not count as a multitude. But what about the Muses? What does it mean to live for them? The Muses are the daughters of Zeus and Mnemosyne. Mnemosyne, as you may know, is the Titaness/goddess who governs memory. The Muses serve as divine inspirations for different arts and sciences, though their scope may seem limited in a modern sense. They are the first aspect of Renaissance neo-paganism that we encounter as we explore the magic of the Arbatel. So, the 9 Muses and their areas of expertise are Calliope, who governs epic poetry, Clio, for history, Erato, for love poetry and lyrics, Euterpe, for music and lyric poetry, Melpomene, who inspires tragedy, Polyhymnia, for sacred poetry and hymns, Terpsichore, for dance, Thalia, for comedy and pastoral poetry, and Urania, for astronomy. I think living for the Muses can mean a few things, depending on interpretation. Perhaps it means that a magician should appreciate the arts and learn to enjoy them. Perhaps it also means that a magician should be an artist. Learn the craft and skill governed by one or more muse. Thank them for your success and efforts, and strive to ignite the artistic spark within. We all know that creativity is a really important part of magic. Being able to imagine and create from imagination is one of our divine gifts. Another important key is that the Muses are the daughters of Mnemosyne, the goddess of memory. Memory and imagination. How strange is it that these themes seem to pop up everywhere in magic? Maybe it's not strange at all. Here's my conversation with Evan on this topic.
Okay, aphorism 3 is one that I really love. It starts off, live for yourself and for the Muses, which I love. In fact, I think I'm going to use live for the Muses as the name of the episode. I don't know. But this particular aphorism is fascinating because it starts off with this like, it calls out the Muses, who are the deities that give us art, that bring us the ability to do artwork, that inspire us to work towards amazing pieces of art. But this aphorism also says that you should be beneficent to all people, and that you should use your gifts, and that you should do all these things. It has these interesting sort of things where it's like, be stingy with your time, avoid the friendship of the multitude, but be good for everybody. Use your gifts and do all these things. And I love the invocation of the Muses there, that sort of like, I guess it's not an invocation, but I guess in the literary sense it's an invocation, just not the magical sense. But I love that it's sort of like, live for the Muses, because this is one of the things that I think really drives me to love the Arbatel a little bit more, because it really kind of encourages the magician to engage in art, right? Like it's sort of, the Muses are there to help us create beauty. And so the implication to me is that this one is sort of telling us that we should be involved in creating and expressing beauty, because that helps the world.
Right. And it brings us, if you look at whatever, a higher power you believe in, if you look at it as a creator God, it brings you closer to the divine, because like being creative brings you closer to a God that created everything.
Yeah. Almost like makes me think of like as above, so below, right? Like our duty is to sort of like mimic or duplicate like the divine nature as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And so by creating, we are following the path of the creator.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if you like look at it as like the idea of the one, where we're all just expressions of God, then it's just God continuing to create.
Mm-hmm. Something from that piece of the where the Muses are called up that I think we'll see a little bit more later in the book is kind of this thread of Renaissance neo-paganism. Now it's super diluted because the Arbatel is so Protestant and so far kind of divorced from that way of thought, or that sort of like, I don't know what you want to call it, decadent indulgence in the arts. Right. But it is still sort of saying like the art's important, like enjoy them, learn them, practice them. I really like that.
Me too. I think the one thing that I didn't really, in that aphorism, I don't really understand the never let the word of God leave your lips. I don't know if that means never stop spreading like your religion. Like, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I guess that could be.
I've been thinking about that too. I have a couple of ideas. I think first, it might be another one of those learn how to keep secrets. Mm-hmm. It might be like aphorism 1 where it's like, and remember, you're still keeping secrets. But I think it might be like, what about sort of the idea of saying the Lord's name in vain, how that's supposed to be a sin, or the word of God. What if it's about like prophecy? Like, don't use the Arbatel to speak prophecy, or something of that nature. I don't know. That is a weird one. Verbum de nunquam recedat ab ore tuo. Never let the word of God leave your lips. I don't know.
It's a ChatGPT question right there. Gonna have to ask it tonight. The all-knowing AI. Up until 2017, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so that's aphorism 3. I really enjoy the part about the Muses. I don't know that we'll necessarily come back to that, but okay, aphorism 4. My first thought on this one is that it's just kind of a list of virtuous things that you should be doing, right? It's a list of practices that help you avoid vice, practices that help you just be an upright person, a better person, right? Heed those with good advice. Avoid all procrastination.
I'm so terrible at that.
Me too. I'm terrible at both. Although, honestly, I would say that one of the things that I have learned over the years is that, like, people like us who are doing art and creating things on our own, we think that we are horrible procrastinators. But if you look at how much stuff we get done on our own,
True.
We are not procrastinators. I've seen your artwork. I've seen the sculptures you've been making. I've seen all that. You don't procrastinate. You just do the things. You're living for the muses.
Yeah, I'm kind of just on my own time.
Right. But some of the stuff here is like, flee the mundane and seek heavenly things. That's great. I love that. Don't rely on your own wisdom, but look to God in everything, following the opinion of Scripture.
Which opinion's kind of an interesting word to use there.
Yeah, but it once again reminds me a lot of like this. It feels like a Freemasonry list. It feels like the sort of stuff that Freemasonry tells you to do.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too. Like temperance came to mind. Like a lot of virtues. Let me see. There's something. Oh no, I thought that something else was in this one.
And then there's that line where human aid deserts us, there the help of God shines forth, which is from Philo, who is a really, really early Jewish Christian philosopher. Like, I'm going to get the dates wrong, but I think like 2nd century or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Who was really, really influential in like early Christian philosophy. So that's interesting. That's another. These are all things that you just see cropping up in the Masonic degrees.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that one paragraph probably covered like, in the Scottish Rite anyway, probably like 8 degrees.
5 to 12 degrees. Yeah. Okay, aphorism 5. Once again, it feels like a virtue that we are told to practice. Love the Lord your God. It's basically practice the love of the divine,
right?
Or experience the love of the divine. I think that aphorism 5 is primarily kind of about like the experience of faith as a virtue. Sort of telling us that faith needs to be sort of cultivated, and it needs to be. I mean, for a lot of people, faith is not automatic. There are certain, like I don't have automatic faith. Mm-hmm. Faith is something that has to be kind of like nurtured and built and practiced over time.
Yeah.
Like any virtue.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And this one seems like it's kind of one of those.
It's along the lines of just, if you take the God aspect or a religious aspect out of it, it's just knowing that that as long as you're living your life in a good way, things, everything that happens for a reason, and that reason may not be known to you in the time, but it may suck in the moment. But because right. The Lord will watch over you as the pupil of His eye, and will deliver you from all evil, and He will fill you again with all of His goodness. I just kind of took that as like, no matter how bad things get, you just as long it goes right in line with what you're saying. Yeah, just have faith that everything's going to work out in the end, and which let's all hope, right?
Well, I mean, it's one of the funny things about practicing magic for a long time, right? Is that you do kind of end up having the sort of faith that things will work out in the end,
right?
As you become more competent with it, as you get deeper into a practice, like you kind of build a network of safety.
Yeah.
And I think that I was just about to give away some secrets. I won't give away any secrets. Because the Arbatel told me not to.
The 6th aphorism of the First Septenary is about memory. It says, "Whatever you have learned, repeat it often and fix it in your mind." This is a command to memorize important things. This aphorism warns us not to tackle too much because we are, after all, only human and should be aware of our limits. but it enjoins us to become good at those things we do pursue and tells us to use our memory to do it. Interestingly, the technique promoted by this aphorism is not the art of memory. By 1575, the art of memory had already faded from prominence, especially in Protestant parts of Europe. Though memorization remained an important part of education, the employment of the imagination as a key element of memorization had faded. However, we are living in the 21st century, which is enlightened and benighted in its own peculiar way. We know today that the art of memory is a powerful tool for memorization, and that imagination is one of the particular tools of the magician. And we don't need to rely on the tedium of rote memorization to store information in our minds. My advice would be to use the mnemonic technique that works for you. In addition, make some kind of amulet for mnemosiny. This can be pretty simple. For example, I keep a copy of the Orphic hymn to Mnemosyne folded up in my pocket as a reminder of her importance to me and my magical practice. Here is my conversation with Evan about the 6th aphorism.
So the divinely renewed is what caught my attention.
Mm-hmm.
It really, I had to look it up what that even meant. At first, I thought when I read that divinely renewed, I kind of thought it was something like something in terms of like enlightened, like unless you're enlightened or something along those lines. But that's not what it's a process. It's basically a decision that one makes to live their life in a certain way. And then it's the journey of constantly striving in thought, in action, in word. Every aspect of your life kind of falls in line with this personal philosophy of living your life in accordance with being good, basically being more like God. So unless you're able to be divinely renewed, all these aphorisms are telling you how to be divinely renewed.
That's interesting. Have you ever had that kind of experience where it's happened to me more than once. I don't think that being divinely renewed is a one. Oh, maybe I just haven't reached it yet. But like I have had those times where I've realized that like in order to be a better person or to live a better life, it had to be a decision that I needed to make.
Right.
Where I had to be like, this is something I'm going to do that I'm going to do better at. I'm going to be better at this. And it's happened a number of times in my life, and each time I think it's helped make me into a better person. I'm not sure that I will ever be as good a person as I want to be, but I feel like each time I have one of those, I think I experience that a little bit.
Right, and being divinely renewed is a process of a series of those events happening that you're describing. Like when I actually wrote it down, when I looked it up, this is just according to Google's like AI search result that gives you a breakdown, but it says that to be divinely renewed is to undergo a spiritual transformation, revitalization of the mind and spirit through a closer connection with God. It involves shedding old limiting ways of thinking and embracing a renewed mindset that aligns with God's will. This renewal is not a one-time event, but rather a continuous process of learning to think and act in a godly way. In essence, being divinely renewed is about becoming more like Christ, reflecting his character and living a life that honors him. So obviously it's a Christian concept. But and then it goes on with shifting perspective, renewing your mind, transforming your life, experiencing God's presence, a continuous process, embracing new ways. And it kind of breaks down how, like, examples of these changes, and it is an active decision that you make, even though in Arbatel it kind of comes across as something that just happens to you. It seems like it's a thought shift where you're kind of shifting you're shifting your will to act more in this way. And then and like you said, you have these moments where you're like, I need to change this thing and I need to change this thing to be a better person, and it's just a constant journey of trying to be better and better, which is what Freemasonry is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what Freemasonry is, for sure. So, yeah. Have you had moments like that before?
Yeah, I have. Quite a few. And I mean, it's also kind of falls in line with like, any work that you do on yourself through therapy or, stuff like that. It's a constant striving to be better. recognize and kind of being able to look inward and recognize like, oh shit, I'm doing this thing that could be hurtful, you know, and I don't mean it to be that way, or I need to change this aspect because it's not really in line with this personal philosophy that I've adopted, you know, and and so I've definitely had those moments.
Yeah, I find that it turns into kind of a constant struggle, you know, like I might be able to like spot things about myself that I want to be better at, or that I want to improve, but even though I can recognize them, the actual act of improvement it's not automatic. It's not just like a thing that happens. Even if I'm sort of like, I really want to be better at doing this, it doesn't just happen because I say it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's as long as you're recognizing it and putting that effort forth, I think that's really the important thing. And really, it's almost like the actions are the easiest thing I feel like to change is the thought processes that are the hardest to change, you know, those judgmental thoughts we all have when, you know, we see, you know, whatever. And
yeah, they sneak up on you.
The mean things I say in my car when I get angry in traffic. And
oh, man. It's a great reason to not have a car. So the thing in Aphorism 6 that jumped out to me was the thing where it says, repeat it often and fix it in your mind. Because to me, that sort of, and I mean, I'm totally willing to accept that like, I saw this because I always look for art of memory references in books, and in the Arbatel in particular, since it's a Protestant grimoire that's sort of during the time when the art of memory was dying out, especially in Protestant areas, seeing something like that was like, oh, that sounds like memorization. So I sort of was like, this is about memory. But the thing is, the art of memory doesn't play a very big role in the Arbatel. Like we'll see later on when we get to the seal that it talks about in one of the later septenaries. That has elements that I think might be related to the art of memory, but it's never really said explicitly. So when I said this, I was sort of like, oh, this is totally about memorizing things, you know, because it's like it's talking about learning, repeating what you've learned and fixing it in your mind, right? And that's like, it sounds like rote memorization. It sounds like just sort of repeating something to yourself over and over and over and over again until it just sticks in your mind. And I really kind of love that part of it because I do believe that memory is like one of the most vital parts of magic, you know, because it has to do with building images. It has to do with like all this stuff.
right.
But then it also says like, don't learn too much.
I found that so funny. Learn a lot, but not too much.
Well, it makes sense. Oh, I mean, we've all met those occultists.
True.
Who have learned too much stuff.
Yeah. You know, that's kind of falls in line with the previous aphorism about temperance, you know, kind of, you know, don't get greedy.
Don't get greedy. Yeah. It does make me kind of want to look at, are there other times? So there are things, this septenary has limits in it, right? So it has like things you're supposed to do, but also at every point it's sort of like, but don't go too far. So I mean, keeping secrets is obvious. Lots of things you're not supposed to say.
Yeah.
Aphorism 2 is sort of like, don't use the spirits unwisely, I guess. Aphorism 3 is don't have too many friends.
Yeah. People are exhausting.
Yeah, people are exhausting. Aphorism 4 is just a bunch of virtues. Virtues are always sort of limiting in some sense, but yeah, aphorism 5 is sort of about like faith and patience.
And kind of being able to give up a little bit of control.
Yeah, so, okay, so there is nothing in your soul. There is nothing your soul will desire that will not be granted in the future, provided it serves towards the salvation of body and soul. Right. So it is saying that, like, yeah, it's basically saying there's a plan. I guess there's a plan. You're going to get some things and not others.
And it all kind of falls in. I think that's why that divinely renewed, that divine renewal stuck out at me so much. Is it seems like this is all like it's kind of two things. It's all of these aphorisms kind of seemed like a guide or a warning going into this of how you should be living your life and how and different things that you should be applying to your life. But it also is kind of a guide as to how to obtain that divine renewal, you know, or get your life onto that path, which, you know, seems kind of like it's I mean, it's definitely what is it? Isagage is how you pronounce it. Yeah, it's definitely an introduction. Like, yeah,
that's our official pronunciation.
Do this first is kind of what this whole septenary seems like. I
guess it might be difficult to say if. No, definitely, the entire Arbatel is the Isagage. I think, not just the First Septenary, because remember, there's supposed to be 8 more books.
Yeah.
Number 7, call upon me in the day of trouble, and I will deliver you, and you will honor me. This is just the same as the thing that's saying, in all things, call upon the name of the Lord.
Right.
It feels like, but it's sort of saying, like, when you're having a bad day, also do it.
Yeah.
You know? I really like all ignorance is but the tribulation of the mind.
Right.
That's a good line.
It is.
It's sort of like, it's just saying that, like, if you don't know something, then rely on faith. I have a difficult time with that one.
So do I. It almost, like, I put it in my notes, it came across like, it's like call upon God when in ignorance, but if you should remain ignorant, that's God's will. So.
No, that sounds good. I like that. You and I have both spent a lot of time in this book. But going back through it with a little bit more detail and a little bit more like diving in, do you have any new thoughts on the First Septenary?
No, I think this is the most thought that I've actually put into it, because I fell into the trap that, like, everyone talks shit about this, like when in reading, like, everyone jumps right to the Olympic spirits and this and that, and it's like, well, I didn't necessarily jump right to that, but I did, like, this just felt redundant to me at first, because I didn't really read into it or, like, really think about each aphorism the first 2 times that I read this, and so now that I'm actually studying each one and really giving each one attention, it's just kind of put this text in, like, an entirely new light, which has been nice to really kind of slow down and work through it more intentionally.
Here. Like, even when I taught an Arbatel class earlier this year, and even when I did that, like, I read the Arbatel again. I mean, it's like 50 pages altogether, right? So it's not much to read. But I was mostly just sort of like looking for the highlights to pull out. Yeah. And so now, like, stopping and actually going through the aphorisms one at a time has made me think about it, all of them, a little bit more. I definitely think that the First Septenary, it does sort of like, it's not the end of the Arbatel telling you what the hell to do. But it does kind of like really set the base work. Like, hey, if you want to do this, like, get ready. You're going to have to keep a lot of secrets. There are things you won't be able to tell your buddies. Right. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to get used to praying more. You're going to have to do some art. Write a poem, draw a picture. Like, you don't get to be a magician unless you can make art. And so
it's really fostering, like, your imagination too. Like, imagine your imagination. There's a lot about, or a lot of it I kind of took as having good intentions going into it. A lot of it is about living according to God's will, to be good to your neighbor, all these things, and it's kind of really focuses on just living a good life, having good intentions, not taking advantage of the, working with spirits, not asking them for silly things. The mundane, look to the heavenly. Is in one of the aphorisms, and so.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, it kind of but that element of, like, being a good neighbor, being good in the world, like, that is kind of like the essence of what virtue is.
Right.
Virtue is all about how you interact with the world. Like, it doesn't matter if you're virtuous on the inside. It matters if you're virtuous on the outside, because your virtue is visible.
Right.
Most of it, I guess. Maybe not all of it. Maybe not everybody can see all of your hope and faith. But
unless there's, like, some psychic field that are thoughts, then even negative thinking or whatever just plays into this field. But it put a lot of things into different perspective too, and being able to look at it. I think the first 2 times I read this, it was really hard to overlook the Christian undertones, or really not even undertones. It's just blatantly very Christian.
It is.
But looking at it now, more open-minded. Not that I'm closed-minded to Christianity, but it's just not my religion. And looking at it more open-mindedly really helped to pull things that I didn't really from it, meaningful things that I didn't pull from it the first 2 times.
Yeah, I think there's only a couple of places where Jesus is mentioned, for instance. Like, it doesn't seem, I mean, a lot of it is sort of, biblical. But honestly, aside from the 2 Jesus mentions, it's no more biblical than Freemasonry.
That's true.
We do that a lot.
We do that a lot.
Yeah.
In this episode, you joined Evan and me as we explored the First Septenary of the Arbatel. We both had a lot to say about the Arbatel's emphasis on secrecy, memory, the Muses, faith, and other topics. In our next episode, we're getting into the Second Septenary of the Arbatel. This conversation, when we recorded it, was really surprising to me because both Evan and I discovered some surprising things hidden in the Second Septenary. In fact, we found information that will change the way we look at the rest of the Arbatel and this project. I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you. This series of episodes about the Arbatel is ongoing. My Patreon supporters will be receiving each episode a week before the rest of the world, along with bonus materials such as behind-the-scenes clips, a glimpse at works in progress, and the opportunity to suggest further topics for our Arbatel exploration. If you are enjoying these episodes and you want to support their development, you can help out by sharing this podcast with a friend. Let your weird wizard buddies and witch pals know that we have embarked on this journey. And if you want to contribute monetarily, you can go to arnemancy.com/support and find a range of options. And just remember, if you want to access a playlist of all the Arbatel episodes, you can find one at arnemancy.com/Arbatel. Until next time, keep reading books, keep being weird, and most of all, keep doing magic.
This has been another episode of the Arnemancy Podcast. Thank you for joining me. I have been your host, Reverend Erik. You can find Arnemancy online at arnemancy.com, and you can subscribe to this podcast anywhere podcasts are found. If you like what you hear, please consider supporting the Arnemancy Project for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/Arnemancy.
This is Vanessa Urena, and I'm really excited to announce my new store, Sword Inside, where I will be offering magical art, materia, and services beneath Mars and Saturn. You can visit the store at swordinside.com and be sure to sign up for the email list to receive early access to new releases.